Hey guys, so today we're going to be seeing the French Revolution part 4. Did women have a revolution? We've already uploaded all the summary parts and all the parts of all the rest of the parts. So go and check that out too. So let's get started. From the very beginning, women were active participants in events which brought so many important changes in the French society. They hoped that their involvement would pressurize the revolutionary, their government to introduce measures to improve their lives. Most of the women of the Third Estate had to work for a living. They had worked as seamstresses or laundresses, or sold flowers, fruits, and vegetables at the market, or were employed as domestic servants in the houses of prosperous people. Most women did not have access to education or job training. Only daughters of nobles or wealthier members of the Third Estate could study at a convent, after which the families arranged marriage for them. Working women had also had to care for their families, that is to cook, fetch water, queue up for the bread, and then look after their children, and the wages were lower than those of men. So let me explain this, you guys. From the beginning of the French Revolution itself, women were active participants in this, and then they brought so many important changes in the French society too. And then they hoped that their involvement would pressurize the revolutionary of the government, and they thought they were waiting for the government to improve their lives, but they did not. So most of the women of the Third Estate, they had to work for the living, because when the men had gone for the war, they have to earn their living, and then they have to take care of the family and stay in large queues or to get bread, because at that time bread was very scarce because of the weather and hailstorms and all that. It was very hard for them. And so what and all work they'll do, they worked as the seamstresses and even the laundresses who, like, maybe I think that's for laundry, and then they even sold flowers, fruits, and vegetables in the market, and some of them were even employed as domestic servants in the household of prosperous or richer people too. And most women did not have education, only the or job training. Only the daughters of the nobles or the wealthier members of the estate could study at a convent, which their family arranged, and after that a family arranged marriage for them. And working women had to also take care of their family, that is to cook, fetch water, and all that, right? And then their wages were lower than of men. Men itself have very low wages, and women have lesser wages than men. And in order to discuss and voice their interest, women started political clubs and newspapers. About 60 women clubs came up in different French cities. The Society of Revolutionary and Republican Women was the most famous of them. One of their main demands was that women enjoy the same political rights as men. Women were disappointed that the Constitution of 1791 reduced them to as passive citizens. They demanded the right to vote, to be elected to the assembly, and to hold political office. Only then they felt that their interest would be represented in the new government. So what is happening here is, in order to make the women's voice also important, they started their own political clubs and newspapers. So about 60 women clubs came in different parts of the French cities, and the Society of the Revolutionaries became like Jacobin Club. Republic Women was one of the most important of them, and one of their main demands was that women should enjoy the same political rights and freedom as men are enjoying. Women were disappointed that the Constitution of 1791, at that time, right, we already read that in the Constitution of 1791, women were not allowed to vote, and they were considered as passive citizens. Passive citizens means they can't vote, like women and children children below the age of 25, and even men can only do a vote, but men who can pay taxes that is equal to 3 days of labor wages or can only vote. They are active citizens, but women, artisans, peasants, and children are all considered as passive citizens, and they cannot vote. So they were very disappointed because women were considered as passive citizens, and they demanded the right to vote, to be elected to the assembly, to hold the political office. So they also wanted a place for the political office. Only then they would feel the equality, and then they wanted their interest to also be represented in the new government. And in the early years, the revolutionary government did introduce laws that helped to improve the lives of the women. Together with the creation of the state schools, schooling was made compulsory for all girls, and their fathers could no longer force them to the marriage against their will. Marriage was made into a contract to enter freely and registered under civil law. Divorce was made legal and could be applied for both men and women. Women could now train for jobs and could become artists or run small businesses too. So what they're telling here is, in the early years, the revolutionary governments introduced a few laws to improve the lives of the women too, and the creation of the improved things are, the schooling was made compulsory for all girls, and the fathers could no longer, they can't force their daughter to get married. If the daughter doesn't want to, they can stay without marrying. And marriage was made into a contract, into freely registered under civil law, and at that time divorce can only be given by men. It cannot be given by women. Only men can take the decision of the divorce. So that was also taken off. So both women and men can now apply for the divorce if they want to, and women could now train for jobs and become artists or even run some small businesses. So that is very nice of them, right? And women's struggle for equal political rights, however, continued. During the Reign of Terror, the new government issued. Reign of Terror is a period which is from 1793 to 1794, and the new government issued laws ordering the closure of women's clubs and banning their political activities. Many prominent women were arrested and a number of them were executed too. So what they're telling here is, the women political rights were, their protests were still continued. And during the Reign of Terror, there were a lot of guillotined. A lot of people were guillotined, right? There were two poles, and there was a blade which was used to behead the people, and this was found by Dr. Gilliton. So what was happened here is, Reign of Terror is the the time which is between 1793 and 1794. At that time, they guillotined literally 17,000 people too, and many of the prominent women were arrested, and there was even laws ordering the closure of women's clubs and banning their political activities. So and many of them were arrested, and the number of them were executed and killed. And women's movements for voting rights and equal wages continued through the next 200 years in many countries of the world. The fight for the vote was carried out through an international suffrage movement during the late 19th century and in the early 20th century too. And the example of the political activities of French women during the revolutionary years kept alive as an inspiring memory. It was finally in 1946 that women in France won the right to vote. They were still fighting and last day, and the day was 1946. In that year, they won the right to vote. So what they're telling here is, women's were still, they were still protesting for their rights to vote and equal wages, all that. It continued to the next 200 years. Many countries of the world fought for the women's international suffrage movement. It was carried through an international suffrage movement during the late 19th and the early 20th centuries. And the examples of the political activities of French women during the revolutionary years kept alive and an inspiring memory. And it was finally in 1946 that women in France won the right to vote. So this beautiful lady is a very inspiring person. We have to read that too. And then we're going to see the declaration of some basics rights. And but this is a very small part, and it's really interesting too, right? So let's see. The life of a revolutionary woman, Olympe de Gouges. Olympe de Gouges was one of the most important politically active women in the revolutionary France, and she protested against the constitution and the declaration of man and citizen, as they excluded women from the basic rights that each human being was entitled to. So in 1791, she wrote the Declaration of Rights from Women and Citizen, which addressed the Queen and to the members of the National Assembly, demanding that they should act upon it. And in 1793, Olympe de Gouges criticized Jacobin government for forcibly closing down the women's clubs, and she was tried by the National Convention, which charged her treason soon after she was executed. So she is a lady who fought for the women's rights, and at that time she criticized Jacobin's government for closing down the women's clubs, and at that time she was charged with her she was in the trial, and she was charged with treason, which is betrayal of the own country or the government. So soon after she was executed, and obviously she was guillotined. And this, in this you will have seen that where is that, for the men and citizen there is, this one, yeah, see, Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizens. Men are born, and men are born, it's like that, right? But in her thing, she is only put in woman has born. She's in that, what she's trying to say is everything that men can do, women can also do. See, woman is born to be friends. She's just replaced the men in as women. And this is such a beautiful thing. You have to go through that too. It's no need to by heart it, just go through it. And in 1793, Jacobin political Chaumette sought it to classify the women's clubs in the grounds as nature. Okay, so this is just a conversation. So in 1793, the Jacobin politician Chaumette sought to justify the closure of women's clubs on the following grounds. Has nature entrusted domestic duties to men? Has she given us breasts to nurture babies? No, she said to man. A man hunting, agriculture, political duties, that is your kingdom. She said to a woman, be a woman. The things of the household and the sweet duties of motherhood, those are your tasks. Shameless are those women who wish to become men. Have not duties been fairly distributed? So this is a conversation. So see, these are the women queuing up for the bakery to get the food. Look at that. And most of them wouldn't even get food, but they just want food for one time. That is so sad, right? I want to see. Yeah. So this is a conversation, and they're saying that has nature entrusted domestic duties to men? She has given breast to nurture the babies? No, she said to man. A man hunting, agricultural, political duties, that is your kingdom. And she said to a woman, that is like, there is no task which are assigned for a particular gender. It's like everyone can do anything. She said to a woman, she's telling, be a woman and the things of your household and the sweet duties of motherhood, those are your tasks. Shameless are those women who wish to become men and have not duties been fairly distributed. That is so rude, huh? So that's it for today's video, guys. We have completed it, and it's so short and it's really interesting in my opinion. So make sure you like, share and subscribe, and comment down below if you have any doubts. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.